Have you ever watched your morning peace shatter because a self-appointed neighborhood dictator decided your driveway was her personal throne? What if that dictator was the Hoa president who'd already spent months painting you as the dangerous outsider, threatening everyone's precious property values? And when she parks her shiny white Tesla sideways across your land, blocking a massive delivery you planned for weeks, then dares you to do something about it. Do you stay silent or finally push back? I knew that morning was headed straight off a cliff the second I stepped outside with my coffee and spotted that gleaming white Tesla parked diagonally across my driveway like geometry had personally offended it. Not just crooked, deliberately sideways, front wheels kissing my fence, rear bumper flirting with my firewood stack, completely blocking the only spot the lumber truck could back into. And there she stood, arms folded like a bouncer at an exclusive club nobody wanted to join. Brenda Caldwell, Hoa president, oversized sunglasses hiding eyes that had already spent the last year whispering behind my back that I was the property value killer, because my work truck sometimes sat visible for 10 whole minutes. Before I could even mutter good morning, she launched. If you're such a big strong man, Mark, you can move my car yourself. Her voice carried across the cul-de-sac like she was auditioning for a reality show. I blinked, mug still warm in my hand, brain catching up. She didn't wait. Is ruining the entire aesthetic of our street. I pay my dues. Consideration. Spatial consideration. I glanced past her. 40 tons of lumber, real heavy, unforgiving oak and pine I'd ordered weeks ago for the workshop I was finally building after the city cleared every permit. I'd measured the slope twice, chalk-marked the exact backing path, triple-checked clearance with the driver. Everything was textbook except Brenda and her floating ego parked squarely on my land. I kept my tone even, the same calm I'd used last year when she circulated that ridiculous petition claiming my flag was politically aggressive and lowered everyone's resale value by 0.001%. Brenda, that's my driveway. I've got a truck coming in minutes. She laughed. Actually laughed, a brittle little sound like breaking crystal. Your driveway ruins my turning radius, Mark. That wood pile is an eyesore. Property is a social construct anyway. I swear she said it with a straight face. I reminded her again whose land we were standing on. She flipped her hair, marched to her porch, sat down like a queen on her throne, and crossed her arms. If you want it moved so badly, do it yourself. Right on cue, the diesel rumble echoed down the street. The driver leaned out his window, took one look at the Tesla, and gave me the universal, I have exactly one shot and zero tolerance for suburban nonsense stare. He explained the reschedule fee would be on me if he couldn't back in. Brenda smirked from her porch like she'd already won the Oscar for Best Neighborhood Martyr. Something clicked inside me, not rage, just cold, patient clarity. The same clarity that had kept me silent through her last year's smear campaign. I walked straight to the Tesla, spotted the key fob glinting in the gravel where she dropped it in her dramatic exit. Picked it up. Completely unaware it had become enemy number one. Brenda shot up like I'd set off a firecracker. You are not touching my car, she shrieked, running toward me, hands waving like she was directing invisible traffic. I said move it, not like this. I slid into the driver's seat. My knees kissed the steering wheel. Classic Brenda. Always adjusting everything to her tiny worldview. She pounded on the window, mouth moving in silent outrage. I eased the Tesla forward, inch by perfect inch, until it cleared just enough for the truck to start its maneuver. Then I kept going all the way down to the flatter section near my wood stacks, parking it neat as a pin, untouched, undamaged, and finally out of my way. Brenda followed the whole time like an angry parade float, screaming about insurance, lawsuits, emotional trauma, boundary violations while standing entirely on my boundary. When I stepped out, the driver gave a surprised laugh, the kind that slips out before you can stop it, and started backing in flawlessly. Chains rattled. Began their slow, majestic descent onto my land. Brenda stood frozen, watching like it was the fall of Rome. This noise, this ugliness, it's destroying the character of the neighborhood. I shrugged. Brenda. She spat back. Property is a social construct invented by men who want to control space. The driver leaned toward me and whispered, "Does she live here or does she haunt the street?" I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. When the truck finally pulled away, leaving a perfect mountain of lumber, Brenda demanded her keys. I held them up. "You parked illegally and blocked a commercial delivery," she scoffed. So I pocketed them. Her face went ghost white. I pointed at the perfectly parked Tesla 10 feet away. "If I'm stealing it, I'd at least pick something that doesn't need an app update to open the glove box." She called the police, performed the call, really voice trembling, pacing, telling the dispatcher her neighbor had kidnapped her vehicle. 2 cruisers rolled up, lights flashing but sirens off. Brenda straightened like she was accepting a Nobel Peace Prize for pettiness. She rushed them, launching into a tearful tale of theft, trauma, rights violations. One officer approached me. The original parking angle, the delivery paperwork. The other officer asked Brenda 3 simple questions. "Did he drive it off your property?" "No." "Did he damage it?" "No." "No." The cop sighed the sigh of a man who'd seen 1,000 Karens. "No crime here, ma'am. Move your own car next time." They handed the fob back to me, tested it, and left. Brenda stared after them like they'd betrayed the entire HOA constitution. By afternoon she was back, this time with a folder thick enough to stop bullets, diagrams that looked like a 5-year-old drew the cul-de-sac, and a smile that said she'd just discovered a new clause in the HOA bylaws. "I've consulted the board." For aesthetic threats. I read the page she shoved at me. It said nothing of the sort. Lumber qualified as dangerous debris. I asked if she'd ever seen debris measured with chalk lines and a laser level. She didn't answer. Photos from every angle like she was building a case for the Supreme Court of suburban whining. The next morning the county inspector showed up. Calm, professional, actually read my permits. He walked the site, complimented the organization, said everything was textbook code. Brenda couldn't stand it. Launching into another monologue about how the lumber blocked sunlight, destabilized soil, and was single-handedly lowering her property value by at least 12%. The inspector asked if she owned the land. No. Eviction? No. Then politely told her to step aside. He pulled me aside later. Complaint lacks substance. Clean report. Brenda accused me of manipulating officials. I asked how showing paperwork counts as manipulation. She stormed inside. 2 hours later a tow truck rolled up with Brenda marching behind it like a general leading a doomed invasion. The driver took one look, realized the vehicle was legally parked on private property, and refused the job. She demanded he tow the lumber instead. He laughed and left. Eyes. Not just rage anymore, but cold calculation. If officials won't help, I'll handle it myself. Next morning I woke to multiple engines. 3 trucks, contractors in reflective vests, safety cones, caution tape unrolling like party streamers from hell. Brenda stood front and center in a vest 2 sizes too big, blowing an actual whistle. "Emergency community safety operation," she announced. The contractors looked confused, then uncomfortable. I walked out and reminded them this land wasn't HO governed. They packed up in under 5 minutes. Brenda screamed, grabbed a roll of tape, and marched straight onto my driveway anyway, wrapping frantic loops around my lumber stacks like she was gift wrapping Armageddon. I stepped in front of her. She pushed past me, tripped over her own dramatic flair, and stumbled straight into one of the timber stacks. It didn't collapse, but the heavy thud echoed like a gunshot. For the first time she looked genuinely scared, not of me, but of the very disaster she'd spent days inventing. She stood up slowly, hands shaking, breathing hard. Neighborhood to stay perfect. I looked at her, pearl necklace askew, vest swallowing her whole, clipboard long abandoned, and said the only thing left to say. Perfection doesn't come from controlling other people's property, Brenda. It comes from knowing when to stop. She walked away without another word. No threats. Log. Just gone. The days after that were quiet, real quiet. No more engines at dawn, no more surprise inspections, no more dramatic footsteps on my gravel. She stopped parking anywhere near my driveway. The workshop went up exactly as planned. Sometimes I still catch her silhouette behind her blinds watching. Not plotting this time. And honestly, that's the part that sticks with me. In these neighborhood wars, there's rarely a clean victory. Just one moment when the person who spent years rewriting everyone else's reality finally realizes the cost of continuing is higher than the rush of being right. Look, folks, the real lesson here isn't about moving Teslas or stacking lumber. It's that the loudest voices screaming about community harmony are usually the ones terrified of losing control. Document everything, stay calm, and enforce your boundaries like they're the only rules that actually matter. Because in the end, the Karen who tries to own your driveway always ends up owning nothing but her own embarrassment. Boundaries aren't suggestions. Suburban insanity. Drop your own HOA horror stories below. I read every single one.